Hello, I'm Seth Clevenger, Managing Editor of Features at Transport Topics, and I'm here with Tom McLeod, who's the CEO of McLeod Software, a major supplier of transportation management software for trucking and logistics companies. So Tom, we're going to talk about ELDs and the recent ELD mandate, and you've seen a lot of big changes in the trucking industry since you founded McLeod Software back in 1985, I believe. Where does the ELD mandate rank among all the big changes that you've seen in this industry in the years since then?
Well, the interesting thing to me is that the ELD mandate with the deadline, it created an event which really was just a natural progression of things that started in the 1990s when the satellite tracking initially and the mobile communication capability began coming into the trucking fleets.
Right.
Of course, the biggest disruption to the trucking industry was in 1980 and deregulation itself. But then there have been other real disruptions to the industry, the mobile communications being one of those. Certainly the introduction of sophisticated management information systems is one. EPA regulations have been big, especially for the last 15 years. I think that's been disruptive but phased in over time, again, without the attention of a deadline that we've had around the ELD mandate. But most of the better managed carriers were already prepared, and we've seen this deadline coming now for several years as the deadline's been postponed now 2 or 3 times.
Right.
So to finally get that last 10 or 15% of the capacity, according to our estimates, of the for-hire market on the ELDs, really almost a minor event from an implementation standpoint, but major kicking and screaming from that last 10% caused it to get a lot of attention. And I believe it will create some disruption in the capacity, and we're seeing that now.
Okay. And of course we had all this build up to the deadline and then the tighter enforcement that went into effect in April 1st. What's your assessment of the overall industry impact thus far of the ELD mandate?
Well, if I can give it one phrase or characteristic, is that disruption always creates opportunity. So for those that are looking for the opportunity and the disruption, there'll be some gains to be made. And again, I don't believe that the disruption has been cataclysmic. And a lot of the language that we heard from people wanting to delay or defer implementation was some of the same language we heard from the drivers back in the 90s when fleets were implementing the mobile communication systems for the first time. They didn't want Big Brother tracking them, seeing what they're doing. Once they got the units in the trucks and realized, hey, I'm never out of touch. I don't have to go find a payphone to find my next load. This is kind of nice. They're seeing the same things now with the electronic logs. Oh, I don't have to fill this out anymore. I don't have to, fool with that. That's kind of nice. My shippers, they don't ask me to do things that I can't legally do anymore. And so we've really put a perimeter on that last fringe, or 10 or 15% of the shipping community as well as the carriers that would skirt the rules when necessary, putting everybody on a level playing field and forcing the better management of the trucking companies.
Sure. And as we've all seen, we made it through December, and then we made it through April, and the freight is still being moved. You can still go to the stores, and indeed all your products are still there on the shelves. But we are in a tight freight capacity market right now. We've seen a significant tightening of the market, and some of that may be ELDs, but we're also in just a generally strong period right now for freight, and the economy is growing. So what do you think is causing the tight market that we're in right now? Do you think ELDs played a role in that, or is it more about just general freight demand?
I believe there's 3 very powerful forces creating the constraint on capacity that we're seeing right now. Of course, one of those is the fact that the economy is very strong and freight is plentiful. Everybody has enough freight. The second factor is the shortage of drivers. And that's created by 2 factors really, primarily in my view. One is that the fact that driver pay has not kept up over the last 20 years with the pay increases that other sectors have seen, mainly in manufacturing and in construction, which is two other employment options that are typically available from the truck driving population. Right. So driver pay catching up is going to be helpful. The second factor being that demographically, the Generation X, which is now 35 to 50 years old, is missing 9 million people. I rarely see that referred to, but that's a big cause of the programmer shortage, by the way, which we've got, as well as the driver shortage. Compared to the baby boomers or the generation coming behind, the millennials, we're short 9 million people, and that's enough of a factor by itself to create a shortage. But in addition, we've seen that before, where we've had strong economy, shortage of drivers. Adding the ELD mandate, and again constraining capacity anywhere from 5 to 7% for some operations, is kind of a triple threat that has created a unique situation. And again, as I said earlier, the disruption creates opportunity. So for the better managed, better prepared companies, they'll really be able to use this period of time to improve their position with shippers. And the ones that learn to improve their operations in these circumstances are going to be the long-term winners.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting thoughts about the driver shortage. And of course, that's always an issue for trucking, but especially when we're in a market right now where there's a lot of freight to move. And as we all know, the real constraint on the market is not equipment, it's drivers. You need drivers to operate the trucks. And when you think about this on the operational side with ELDs, do you think fleets are just going to have to do a better job of really well managing drivers' available hours, especially for these companies that are new to using ELDs?
Yes, I think that the support that the operations departments of the trucking company gives to the drivers in planning the freight to helping them to stay efficient is a big differentiator among trucking companies. The planners have to have visibility to that hours of service available. They need to help the drivers learn how to plan and plan their freight better in order to keep the productivity where it needs to be to get the driver income and to preserve the freight revenue for the trucking company, as well as maintain service levels for the customers. That requires the companies to be learning organizations, and like any other business, to be continuously improving. In fact, this really creates an environment where continuous improvement has to become a core competency of the culture and the capability of the business organization, which is the trucking company. The companies that can keep their drivers 5 to 10% more productive are going to win in the marketplace. Yeah. They'll win with the shippers. They'll meet their service commitments. They'll be able to keep their commitments to the drivers as well as their customers. They'll be able to pick up some of the extra freight by the companies that will go by the wayside as the ELD rollout shakes out companies and really weeds out the companies that are better managed from the ones that are less well managed.
Sure. And with ELDs and with the ELD mandate, of course, there's a closer attention to compliance with hours of service across the board. And is that changing the way that some fleets, perhaps some of your customers, are using their back office software? I mean, are there adjustments that they're making to make sure that they're really on top of hours of service and really making the best dispatching decisions?
We've, over the last several years especially, added decision support tools so that the planner has visibility of the hours and some automated checks to be sure that the driver is going to be able to make the pickup on time, comply with hours of service rules, make the delivery on time. And again, that support for the driver in terms of the planning process is what's necessary to keep his productivity up and to meet the service commitments to the customer. ATRI did a very revealing study showing that many drivers lose half hour to an hour a day because of the planning issue. One issue being searching for parking.
Right.
So the the company that can support their drivers in terms of planning the way they're going to handle the movements of freight is going to be miles ahead and see some real productivity gains over the competition.
Okay.
And the back office software is key to providing the visibility of the information to make those decisions.
Sure. And one final question I'll leave you with, Tom. A big part of ELDs, as a sort of a side effect is, this really means a lot for the proliferation of technology across the entire industry. Many fleets have been using onboard platforms, technology platforms for many years, and if not decades. But now you have, especially the smaller carriers, owner-operators, small fleets, and now all have some sort of technology platform in the cab, in many cases for the first time. What does that mean for the spread of technology and the opportunity for just more efficient operations across the whole industry?
We're really encouraging companies to think of it not in terms of technology for technology's sake, but we're encouraging companies to think of continuous improvement to their business process. And really the management of information and their information system is impossible to separate many times from the business process, because that's what enables your business process or else holds you back from being able to fully implement. But even given sophisticated tools, we see some companies that incorporate it very well and do a great job with continuing to add to their ability to run more efficiently, to support their drivers more efficiently. And we see other companies that don't do well at all and aren't looking for the same improvements. Over time, there'll be a big gap in performance of those companies, and it'll weed out the poor performers.
Got it. Well, Tom, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and we value your insights, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Well, thanks very much. The industry has been so wonderful to us, and we hope we're in a position to make some contribution back.
All right.